break the walls down. I'm getting used to it. It'll take a little while. Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of NXT Heatwave 2024. This is the weekend wrap-up, update, whatever it's called. I forget every single time.
I call it the weekend update. But
yeah, there you go. And this week, we are updating what you may have missed. That being the show that wasn't Money in the Bank.
Yep.
Heatwave. I had my brain so totally wrapped around in the wrong direction because NXT came after the main show this time.
It is odd. It is odd because normally, like, if in this scenario, we'd put NXT on a Friday, but obviously we have SmackDown, so and it's not like Stand and Deliver weekend, so sod it.
So instead, we got this show last night. Mm-hmm. So welcome, one and all. And here, I'm Tempest. This is Dan. We're going to be giving you our thoughts about the new NXT champion, Ethan Page, who won this title in a way that was a callback to a match from 2007, thus it was good. No, we will get it. We will discuss, but that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, of course it was. Edge was in it.
Yeah. You already know. Yeah. Great match. Anyway, this, of course, was the main event. So we're going to get into our thoughts here. But, of course, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the WrestleTalk Podcast channel, and let us know what you thought down in the comments below if you're watching on demand. Or, in the meantime, we are live this week, of course. So make sure you get in your Omega chats. Nope, that's a different show. Ultra chats.
Yeah, your heat chats, your whoop chats, your all ego chats.
All ego chats, sure. Let's go with that one. Get those in. Support WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll be reading out all of the ones that are $5 and above before the end of the show. So let us know what you think about the new NXT champion. So we, of course, will start our review with the main event, as this is the biggest talking point. This, I thought, in general, was a very good show.
It was a brilliant show.
This show, I thought, was... I haven't seen Collision yet, but of the two wrestling shows that I watched this weekend, I think this was far superior to Money in the Bank. That's kind of been the general consensus that I've seen online as well, so I don't feel too afraid to say it. This show had great match after great match after great match. And we get to the main event, and it's like, okay, we're going to cap off this whole show. And I think the match itself was very well put together. Because you've got all the different guys and their relationships to one another. They do the video package ahead of time where they show you the road of how we got here, where Javon Evans wins the Battle Royal, and then Ethan Page beats him, and then Shawn Spears beats Trick Williams, so we end up in this fatal four-way. And of course, you've got the two young, really exciting guys, and you've got the two old veterans who are also heels. And this is the dynamic we played with for the first chunk of the match, where... you know, the two heels were stopping the two young guns from breaking out and doing all this exciting offense. They'd pull them out of the ring, and they'd look at each other and be like, oh, yeah? Bam, hit one of them on the steps. Oh, yeah? Bam, the other one would hit the other guy on the steps. They'd get back in the ring, and they'd be like, yeah, we're going to go? Nah, we're going to go and beat up the two other guys. So, good fatal four-way pacing for this in the early going. We eventually did get Trick Williams and Javon Evans going one-on-one. Javon Evans, of course, for those who haven't seen, is not super familiar with NXT, one of the, like, surefire breakout stars. He's going to be a superstar type guy.
He's been wrestling for 5 minutes. Like,
he's a 20-year-old.
Yeah, he basically debuted yesterday. So, like, he's brand new, fresh off the bat. He's one of those prodigy types where it's like, you're so good and so young that I hate you.
Puts you in touch with your own mortality a little bit.
Yeah. I could feel my bones creaking.
You've probably seen him in a clip on Twitter. Yeah. He's very exciting. He was Jay Malachi on the Indies. And because this is in Toronto, I feel it is appropriate that I always forget what his indie name was, because there was a Toronto Raptor basketball player whose name was Malachi Flynn. So I always want to say that his name was Malachi Flynn, but I'm like, wait, which one was it? Was he Jay Malachi or Malachi Flynn? But he was Jay Malachi. And these guys had a really fun back and forth match. All four guys got a chance to shine. Shawn Spears went nuts with a chair at one point, as he's one to do. He hit like a C4 into the corner on a chair, which was really good spot. He hit a big C4 to Javon Evans off the top rope. Ethan Page threw Shawn Spears out of the ring, tried to steal the pin, but was kicked out of, to the surprise of everybody. And this was really, really fun. I thought this was a really fun match, really high energy. Toronto was a hot crowd for this whole thing. Trick Williams was over like crazy. You've got two guys from the surrounding Toronto area here as the heels who were playing their part as heels, but were over enough with a hometown-ish audience. You know, Ethan Page being from Hamilton, Ontario, and Sean Spears being from Niagara Falls, Ontario, both within a stone's throw of Toronto, as they say. Also, Toronto. Yeah, me. I'm from Toronto. Me too.
No one ever goes and does they don't do shows at the Warrington Park Hall. I never get this.
But eventually, we get down to the closing moments of this, and I find the finish of this to be very interesting. Ethan Page, of course, hits a razor's edge, the ego's edge, and nearly pins Trick Williams, but Jay Malachi, Javon Evans, puts his foot on the bottom rope. So that was like the near fall for Ethan Page, and as I was watching this, I was like, oh, that's his get close to winning moment. However, shortly after this, Trick Williams is up and about, and he hits the trick shot on Javon, and then hits the trick shot again on Ethan Page, who then falls like a redwood tree perfectly on top of Javon Evans. And as this happens, Sean Spears grabs the foot of Trick Williams, sweeps him out, and pulls him out of the ring as the referee counts 1, 2, 3. And Ethan Page wins the NXT Championship through very little effort of his own in this case.
He falls downwards while falling upwards.
He sure does, you know? And this is nearly identical to the finish from Backlash 2007. In my opinion, maybe the best Fatal 4-Way match WWE's ever done.
So this is John Cena, Randy Orton, Edge, and HBK himself, continuing his run of greatest hits.
Yes. And the most, this is not going to turn into a review of Backlash 2007, although it is a fantastic pay-per-view and you should seek it out if you haven't seen it. That shot pisses me off every time I watch it, because even though I'm watching in hindsight, I'm looking at it and it's a bit different there, because the way they set it up in that match was like everybody hits a parade of finishers. It's like
Edge hits a spear.
Randy Orton goes for an RKO, gets pushed into a spear. I think Edge gets hit with the AA, and then Sean, it's like set up perfectly, so everybody is like, Sean's gonna go last, and Sean's gonna gonna win the title. Everybody starts popping in anticipation of the super kick, and he hits the super kick on Cena, and Cena falls on, I think, Randy Orton, and Sean like turns around, does a full circle, dives for it, but is just a moment late, and Cena wins. And I'm sat there wanting Shawn Michaels to have won the title, and I'm like, God damn it. And I'm so curious as to how this is going to like age. I know it's obviously not the WWE Championship in the main event of a major pay-per-view and everything, but you get the same sort of feeling of like, you can then, knowing it's coming, watching it in hindsight, you see this thing just developing, and you can see Trick Williams hit the move that causes him to lose the championship. And so Ethan Page wins, and he's like knocked loopy. They give him the belt, and he's like, what happened? And eventually he like properly comes to, and he's celebrating with the title, while Trick Williams is just losing his marbles out on the outside. This is an interesting decision. This is not how I thought Trick Williams' title reign was going to end. I think we were talking a little bit about it before we went on the air here, about if you're going to have Ethan Page win the title, perhaps you could have done it at Battleground in a one-on-one match. Maybe that would have been too soon for Trick Williams to have lost the title, and now here we are, you know, a month later or so, and he has. I don't know how I feel about it. This is one where I'm just like, okay, you make that decision. I will see where it goes. I'm willing to give Ethan Page the shot of being top champion of NXT. I think it's interesting taking the belt off of Trick Williams at this point. I think it's interesting because you have Javon Evans, who sure maybe doesn't need it right now. There's an argument to be made. Could have just crowned him. I think there's an argument to be made for that as well. But I think he is destined to be NXT champion probably within a year.
Mm-hmm.
Be known as the youngest NXT champion ever or whatever. He's talented enough to do it. But this was the decision that they made on this night. What did you think about this decision, Dan the man?
I'm a little bit... I don't know, to be honest with you. I like him having the belt. I'm not personally one who's like... I would have put the belt on him. We spoke about this when we did the review of Battleground. For me, it was one of those things like I felt like you could make a massive statement by just putting the belt on him straight away and having it be this like shocker. He's arrived. He's just taken the belt. First time of asking. You could make the argument that Trick, is incredible and super over, but is still enough of a greenhorn, a young gun, to be taken by surprise by a wily sort of 19-year veteran like Ethan Page or whatever, however many years it is. And I don't think I'm not one who subscribes to the idea of looking weak in defeat, especially not in a contest, right? So taking the belt off Trick, fine by me. Putting the belt on Page, I don't know how I feel about the ending. I don't know how I feel about and I've seen some people absolutely love it. I've seen people really, really hyped with the way it was referring back to that Backlash match, the way that it was making a character argument for like Ethan Page falling upward, being this ego-driven fraud, which I'm a fan of. I like that. That's a really good justification.
I'm sure he'll go out there on Wednesday and say he's the most deserving NXT champion ever, etc.
All the rest of it. I just didn't like I didn't like the way it was executed for me in terms of the narrative of the match as a whole. There were a few parts of it where I was just a bit frustrated, and that is a personal response to the thing that I'm watching rather than it is a decree that this thing bad, thing good, or whatever. So I'm very much open to being convinced around it. But for me, what I really liked about the match was it was as much about Trick and Javon as sort of like friends, mentor / mentee kind of thing. Like they were making a point about how like Trick has been taking Javon under his wing kind of thing. Like they've been telling that story the whole match. There are certain points actually where there was one bit where I really loved the fact that Shawn Spears brought in the chair and was about to hit the C4 on Javon, and Trick stopped him and ended up taking the move himself. And it was one of those things of like, oh, and throughout elsewhere in the match, Javon had been seconds away. He kept being like, I was this close. They were talking to each other about that. It seemed to me that Javon, this young 20-year-old guy, first opportunity, he's going to take it. Like, he's not going to wait for permission. He's just going to go out there and earn it and like just do it. And I loved that energy, so that when we got down to it and it had been Trick pushing Javon off the apron, it was almost like he'd had to get brutal with his little protege, for lack of a better word, to take him out, because he was so quick, so energetic, so bouncy. Yeah. And like it was like almost like you couldn't handle him, so I had to just duff him, and my god, that fall looked, through the announce table, looked pretty intense. So then when he pops back up again, like, he's fine. That should have taken him out of the match for me, number one. Second of all, he doesn't break up the pin, he helps Trick get a rope break. And that for me in a fatal four-way is like, why didn't you just break up the pin?
There was a little bit of that.
You're doing as much effort to give him that rope break as you could have used to just bash the pin open.
Yeah.
That irritated me because it goes against what I've been told throughout the match, which I have enjoyed, to be clear, which is Javon Evans is that kind of person who's just going to take his opportunity, and should, because you don't know how many times a chance like this is going to come around, especially at this point in your career. So that kind of frustrated me. Then to follow it up with Shawn Spears pulling Trick out of the ring in a way that made it look like he was holding Trick back, rather than not realizing there was a pinfall going on and then scrabbling in to get it himself.
This is the exact point I was going to make.
It made it seem like a plan for Shawn Spears, which it just wasn't, and that was, obviously, you get the shot of him looking frustrated. It just made me go, that's it? I just didn't get it. I don't hate the ending necessarily, but the execution of the ending just didn't land for me with what I had been sold through the rest of the match, which I thought was pretty bloody good, to be honest.
I think you basically covered like all the little, call them nitpicks. They are small criticisms, because I can see an argument to be made that like when Shawn Spears pulled Trick Williams out of the ring, he had done it having just seen Trick hit his move and was trying to then steal the pin off of that or something, not realizing that Ethan Page was then in the process of picking up a pin. However, it does just seem like you are stopping this man from continuing the match.
Which you are in, and it is your chance as well.
Yes, exactly.
And I can get it if you haven't noticed that he's fallen down.
Yeah.
Like, but then when you notice the ref is starting to count, try and dive in.
That's it. And it was, again, the pieces were laid out in a way where there's not a lot of space they could have taken up to crawl and just miss it and that sort of thing. But I do agree there was a level of it. I don't know what that noise was.
That was me.
Oh.
Just fidgeting. Sorry.
It sounded like it came from over here. There was a level of like, if it had just been done a little bit different, I think it would have been like that much better. But hey ho, regardless, a new NXT champion. And that is certainly interesting. A way to cap off this show, with the exception of a very quick little graphic of say his name and he appears, Joe Hendry.
I know.
At the end of the show, he was very over in the building, apparently.
Yeah.
Like, I had friends that were in the building for this, and they messaged me and was like, so this Joe Hendry guy, like, big deal enough for a big building full of fans to be chanting for him on a show that he's not been advertised for or anything like that. And I was like, yeah, man.
Certainly an NXT crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that being said, let us get into the rest of this show. Because we opened this show, we opened this show with a pre-show in which we had a little tag match that hadn't been built up a lot on TV or anything like that, but was definitely a way for a couple of Canadian gals to end up on this show. So Carmen Petrovic and Ariana Grace defeated Jayne and Jasmine Nix with 2 Ys because she's hard like
Nix.
that. This, again, they did a lot with little build, and the Canadians were very over in this crowd. I'm sure there would be some people in the crowd that would have seen them around as little baby wrestlers on indie shows in Toronto. And I'll kind of get through it fairly quick because, again, pre-show and
yeah,
such.
I didn't catch the pre-show.
Yeah,
so.
This match ends with a roll-up. However, Ariana Grace was able to reverse the pressure, the leverage of the roll-up so that her team was able to get the win. She was basically sobbing on the way to and from the ring, doing her grand pageant cry and everything, and it was then later followed up on during the pay-per-view itself. So, a good little way to get some Canadian folk on the show. I don't mean to just be rude. However,
it was way all great. Nothing you say before the word however.
Of course.
Counts.
But I do find it funny that I think these ladies did absolutely fantastic. Again, given very little for the crowd to care about besides being from that place, they did very well. I think it is hilarious because I was at NXT TakeOver many moons ago. 8 years ago in Toronto, and another Toronto NXT gal at the time came out to be part of all this, someone by the name of Aaliyah, and she did not get the same reaction.
No.
So this is me praising Petrovic and Grace by being great.
Well, I think
giving the people a reason to be like, yay, they're from here.
I also think it's the way NXT has gone. Like, both of them have been quite sort of crucial parts of the show, and both of them, not necessarily in terms of in-ring competition, but in terms of character work. And know, Petrovic being the second to Natalia and all that stuff was a big deal. So like they've got the reps in a way that, with all due respect, she never did, Aaliyah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I learned more about Aaliyah from Breaking Ground than I ever did from television.
Great show.
Great show.
Great
show.
So we open the show proper with Oba Femi versus Wes Lee for the NXT North American Championship. And this is a small point, but Oba Femi's music is so much cooler at 1.5 speed, I've realized.
Most people's music is.
It's a bop.
Yeah.
You know? It's got like a real it's got a funk to it in a way that I don't think ruins the illusion of what Oba Femi is.
To pull the curtain back, sometimes if we're running up against it, we have to sort of watch the show on 1.5 speed. And there are... I should make a list. We could do a PFK list of the best songs at 0.5 speed.
Yeah.
Because there are some that are... Like, Damage Controls it hits a lot harder.
Yeah. Honestly, Roman Reigns' theme is really cool a little bit faster.
So is Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get into this match, and this match was so much fun because Wes Lee's great. Oba Femi is one of one. He is a specimen who no one else currently working wrestles like. So his matches always feel really unique and exciting because you don't see them often. And my God, this was like, I enjoyed this a lot more than I enjoyed the three-way at the last show. And I liked that match.
That match ends up in my top 10 of the year so far. I loved it that much.
Yeah.
So that is high praise.
I fell in love with this match. And maybe, like, there's a lot of things that go into it. Obviously, a big arena crowd that's hot in Toronto, I think, does a lot more for these sort of things than a tiny itty-bitty crowd in whatever UFC amphitheater thing they had going on the last show. So it had a lot of things working in its favor, but you had the emotion of Wes Lee, who had the added stipulation that if he lost, he never got to challenge for the North American title again as long as Oba Femi is champion. And they just balanced each other so perfectly. And very early on, you had Oba Femi hitting an F5000, absolutely launching
this sort of spinning,
Wes Lee.
The spinning top, yeah.
He could have spun him on his finger if he wanted to. He launched this man into orbit. Everybody gave it holy S-word chants. It was a great way to show, like, just establish the roles for anybody who may be new, I suppose.
Yeah.
Small guy is going to have big trouble against big guy. And that's a very oversimplified version of it, but it was incredible to see. You got a lot of, like, big fire from Wes Lee. A lot of his moves took one or two extra tries in order to hit them. The Meteora in particular, he went for a Meteora, was caught by Oba Femi. Was going to get thrown, but managed to reverse it into like a sunset flip, but that got countered too. Ultimately, he managed to hit a Meteora to the back of the head, which was a cool little spot. They both like fought out onto the outside, and Wes Lee ended up on the apron, and he like missed a kick, came back around, and Oba Femi chopped him down off the apron. Everybody lost their minds again. Simple pro wrestling. Big man squash. Not a literal squash, but he squashed that guy. And they just built, and Oba Femi hit him with a powerbomb, a pop-up powerbomb, and beat him. And I love this match.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I mean, Oba Femi is for me, like, I was always more inclined to like the smaller wrestlers when I was younger because I was a smaller person, I suppose, but also because they were more athletic and did more of the impressive stuff.
Typically.
Yes, exactly. And in my mind, the big wrestlers were your Big Shows, your Visceras, your Midians, or people who moved a bit slower, who didn't have that kind of impressive moveset. Whereas now we have these Hoss powerhouse kind of people that I find myself really drawn to, and Oba Femi is like one of my top wrestlers of the year, purely by, I think, his look, I think his attitude, I think his moveset, the way he carries himself, I think is all massive tick on the list. When you've got that contrasted with Wes Lee, who has a speed, a flow, an ability to move his body and work in perfect tandem like that they match so well. You've got the power of Oba Femi with the ability to throw himself around of Wes Lee, and that's when you get those a holy S moment from just a flip kind of thing.
Yeah,
I thought that was exceptional. Adding on top of that, the stakes of, if you don't win this match, you don't get to challenge for this belt. And when the belt in question was one that I might just be misremembering, he had to give it up, didn't he?
Yeah.
So like, he's already had this incredible reign with this belt, and then lost it and won it back, and then had to give it up. and it's like, yes, it's the mid-card belt. There are other opportunities for you on NXT, let alone on the main roster. This belt isn't the be-all and end-all for you. However, it is a very important piece of silverware to you.
That's it. If you, as a wrestler, make the mid-card title the thing that means the most to you, it only makes the title mean more to everyone else.
Exactly. And like, and he's one of, when you write the list of best North American champions, Wes Lee's on there. Like, So the idea that he can never challenge for that belt again means that he is adding even more fire, even more like power and energy to all of his moves. So that increases the stakes for us as the audience, which makes us feel like if he does kick out of a move that I don't think in a million years he should ever kick out of, there's a reason he does. It's because he's desperate to keep in the game. He's going to find that extra level of grit, which we actually see come into play elsewhere in the show as well.
Yeah.
So I really loved everything about it. And the right call. Like you could make an argument for like a sentimental moment of like he's overcome the odds and he's done it and now he's gonna get it. He's got his belt back, but this is Oba Femi's time.
Yeah.
And there is no call to stop this run. I think
he jumps off the screen. He's a can't miss guy.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting for a number of reasons how this all works together in Oba Femi in general, because we saw on this show in this match that Wes Lee, as the match went on, I don't know if he was maybe just a little tired, perhaps. Maybe he wasn't selling it. But also, there were a few moments where the commentators even brought up, like, he feels like he's a step off, having taken on this monster of a man and everything. He kind of mistimes a bit of a springboard, but it's okay because Oba Femi just counters it with an uppercut. So he's taking advantage of this, and he went for the cardiac kick a couple of times and took like a half second to steady himself before going for it. And it's all these different moments that I think added to the match more than anything. But in the case of Oba Femi, and I really want to put this guy over because I think he does have a lot of talent in a very important area of big man style of wrestling that so many of the different guys that have come through over the last 5 years or so haven't figured out and have thus not flourished, is even at his skill level and experience level, he's a tremendous base. You look at a guy like Omos or Commander Aziz or any of these guys that are big, but I never, ever feel when watching them work that they're steady enough for the little guys to work around them and make the match good. You know? If you do a drop kick to Omos, or if you try and do a meteor to Omos or anything like that, I don't have the faith that it's all going to look super pretty and everything. If they wanted to take a spot in this match, the Meteora where Wes Lee jumps up and basically just lands on his shoulders and upper chest, and then Oba Femi takes that, hits him with another move. I don't feel the confidence that a lot of the other big men that have come through the Performance Center over the last 5 years would be able to pull that off without stumbling or any of that sort of thing. And it just makes for so many more possibilities in a match like this. Because, of course, like you see in WWE 2K24, my GM mode, you get better results when it is a big guy versus a little guy than if it is like two big tanks running into each other. So having a guy like that who can so perfectly contrast a smaller, faster guy and make both of them look better in the process is such a rare quality in today's day and age. And it's very difficult to like teach on TV without the guy getting exposed.
Totally. And I think like that's why he is sort of a standout for me in a bunch of different ways, but a standout of what the Performance Center is supposed to be, and it isn't always. So like, you know, for all of the great stuff that's come out of the Performance Center, Bianca Belair, you know, there has been a bunch of dreadful stuff to come out of the Performance Center as well, and it hasn't worked. Whereas like Oba Femi, you know, signed with WWE. I'm on his Wikipedia page now because I just wanted to remind myself, because it feels like he came out of nowhere. And it's not that he came out of nowhere in terms of just WWE and then has a history in the Indies. He literally came out of nowhere. So he wins the breakout tournament and then wins the North American title like the next week.
Yeah.
And it's like that. So for him to be this good, it's like, okay, where does that come from? Well, he signs with WWE for the Next in Line program in 2021. Before then, he was a shot putter
I can
at
believe
college.
it.
And I think that's it. When you're talking about his base, it's his knowledge of how to hold his body to be ready to literally fire the shot put.
It's a great
but
point.
also the awareness of the ring around you when you're doing a shot put, so you're not going over or so that you're within your lines. That kind of thing provides you with that base level knowledge where we can have that moment from Battleground where he catches Wes Lee and launches him into Joe Coffey without having to think twice. Because and to your point as well, it's that allows for Wes Lee to do all of those things safely, which then makes it look $1,000,000.
Yeah.
Like, or, things are going slightly off track. Don't worry, I've got you. I'm so strong. I'm so aware of my surroundings and my body and my base. And that's why he's so the thing I said it during we shot TLC the other week, and the thing I kept saying about it was he's it. I think he's it. Like, I love him. He's everything I look for in a wrestler at this stage of my wrestling fandom. I'm a big fan of him, big fan of this match. Keep the belt on him for as long as you want, and then when someone wins it off him, four.
Yeah. The only other point that I want to make about this match has to do with the commentary.
Interesting.
Because at some point, about halfway through this match, Vic Joseph just quoted all of Eminem's Lose Yourself.
Look, he had one shot and one opportunity, and he took it.
Yeah.
His
he did.
Wes Lee's arms were heavy. He had he was literally eating a plate of mum's spaghetti while he was doing this commentary. He absolutely... Yeah, commentary was weird last night.
It was really strange.
They were really feeling it.
Listen,
maybe it was the altitude.
I get it. If you want to throw one in there and just be like, oh my God, he's gonna seize the moment, you own it, the whole deal, whatever, or say just like, oh, his knee's weak and his arms are heavy. But it was like half the song.
yeah, it was like 3 lines, but it felt like the entire thing.
I think it was more than that.
Was it? I only heard the 3.
He just
kept
going.
going.
It was at the point where I was just like, what's he doing? Oh yeah, Eminem.
He's doing 8 Mile.
Yeah, boy, he's still going. He's still going. He's doing it all.
Look, sometimes you just have to lose yourself in the music, the movement, and you never let it go.
Oh, tremendous. I was alive in 2002.
Good. I'm glad. If you weren't, you have no business being here.
It's true. Anywho, the next match on the show was for the NXT Women's North American Championship. Kelani Jordan making her first major defense of this here belt against Sol Ruca.
Who I love, by the way. She's another one where I'm like, you've just understood it. You've understood the assignment.
Yeah. I'm very sad that she got hurt.
Yeah.
You know? Because I do think it's been a bit of a process for her to kind of relearn how to do all this with a big chunky ass knee brace.
Yeah.
You know, kind of hindering everything. But I completely agree. The only real negatives I had to say about this show were just, and I can't blame them too much because it is what it is this developmental show. But you see the video packages of all these people and you're getting their NXT promos, hyping them up. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. A lot of these people are just like, and my thirst for adrenaline led me here.
Yeah, I will say the performance element of the Performance Center is really lacking.
Yeah.
And I'm when we get it a little bit later on, I've got special vitriol for Wes Lee.
Yeah. But this match, again, was very fun. I really enjoyed this. Dueling crowd chants for both of them. This was a double babyface match. Lots of chants for Let's Go Lonnie, Let's Go Sol, back and forth. And I thought this match was very solid. It was exactly what it needed to be, you know, and it felt a little bit like a big developmental match where they laid everything out. Nothing was super complicated. You know, this was just like, okay, here's how you're going to do this double babyface match. You don't have to do anything crazy. You still got some fun spots and everything, but they kept it simple. and executed it well.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't complain about any of that.
Yeah.
You know? Ultimately, Kelani Jordan was able to get the win here with a split-legged moonsault. And this was after a tremendous Poison Rana off the second rope where one was up on the shoulders. And I was like, how is this going to go? Because this is where it's starting to get a little bit dicey and everything. And again, to their credit, it worked out being pretty simple. But it was like, when you've got someone on your shoulders and you're starting to climb the ropes and everything, it's like, well, now you're opening yourself up for things to potentially go wrong. Especially if one of them has like a never going to be 100% knee with knee braces and such. But they nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And yeah, after the match, they shook hands. I thought this was really fun. I don't have too much more to say about it than that, other than just a thumbs up for both. One of those real good, like, sort of showcase matches where you get to have this in front of a bigger crowd that's not your standard weekly Performance Center deal. And I think everybody came out of it looking pretty good. I'm expecting Sol Ruca to get, like, a big win on one of these shows eventually. You know, I was thinking maybe she'd win the ladder match on the last show. You know, I think this would probably be too soon for a title change like that.
For a new title, especially.
But it's like you said, she's got something about her. She's got a great, fun finish and everything, and a likable aspect to her personality that comes through in her matches. So I would very much expect a big win to be on the horizon for her, but it did not come on this night.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at her background, she's not a wrestler by trade. She comes from an acrobatics background, and it's one of those things where when we're talking about NXT, we kind of have to talk about it in the context of, yes, it's a weekly TV show, yes, they have their pay-per-views, but ultimately it is a performance center. It is supposed to be developmental. This is there's a reason that when you watch the show, sometimes it can be really fumbly. I mean, I think the Lola Vice Roxanne Perez segment was a prime example of how sometimes Jeepers creepers, you're just not there yet. Yeah. And like, that's fine, because that's what this place is for. But when you then examine what the Performance Center should be, what training should be, and what WWE... There used to be a time where WWE would look at like a fitness magazine, and John Laurinaitis would treat it as a catalog. He'd be like, I want those ones because they're pretty, and I want this guy because he's got big arms. And like, that was kind of it. Whereas like now, it's like, okay, so you have this athletics background. How do we use that in the ring? And not all of them in the next in line work out. In fact, very many of them don't. But every now and again, you get an Oba Femi or you get a Sol Ruca where you're like, okay, you have this acrobatics background where not only do you have control of your body in that way, you have the same awareness of the ring and how to use that rope and do this. Where there was that move she did, I've seen it, a lot of people popping for it online. It was a 450 phenomenal clothesline, yeah. Which for me, it's like I've gone on and on about this on the podcast in the past, where certain moves I'm like, well, why are you doing it like that? Why does that give you more momentum? Tyler Bates into the ropes, turn around lariat doesn't do anything for me, because I don't see how that gives him more momentum than a straight run into the ropes. Yeah. Charlotte Flair's the worst one for it, where she does that like forward and it takes her ages
slow motion.
Yeah. This is a prime example of when that's right, which is a lariat, you've got momentum. A springboard lariat, you've got more momentum. A 450 lariat, you've basically turned your body into a sonic ball and you've crushed everything down on you. This is what it's about. I'm using my knowledge as an acrobat. I'm using my knowledge of my body and my momentum to hit a wrestling move that could potentially keep you down for a 3. Yeah. I loved it. This match was, I'm giving it a lot of praise. It wasn't anything spectacular. It didn't blow me away.
They did some spectacular things in it, though.
Within it. That's true. That's very true. But it was exactly what it needed to be. It was exactly that kind of NXT takeover pay-per-view match for this title, really establishing this title as one to be competitive over. Thought Kelani Jordan did a really good job as well. I want to single her out for praise. Is why I think she's a good choice for this title in the early stages of its life. Yeah, big thumbs up from Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. After this, we got a backstage deal here with Ariana Grace and Carmen Petrovic, where Ariana was taking the credit for winning, and Carmen was like, well, I got the pin. That was me. And Ariana was like, yes, but I was the MVP. I managed all this. And Carmen was like, well, I don't know. Maybe we should see about that. And Ava Rain, who's between them, says, you know what? I think that's a very good idea. How about on NXT, you versus you? We'll see who the real MVP of the team is. And Carmen's happy with that. And Aria just goes, can't believe you would put 2 tag team partners against each other. It's pathetic. And walks off.
She's very good at this character.
She is very good. She's very good,
Yeah.
that Ariana Grace. Then.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. Because after this, we got, for the NXT Tag Team Championship, Axiom and Nathan Frazer versus Chase U. Now, Andre Chase had left Ridge Holland somewhere else. Don't come to Canada. Stay wherever you're staying. And
It's too cold.
It's too cold. It's too cold for this Welshman.
Sheffield.
Yeah. And
He's not from
thus...
Wales?
Is he not?
He's from Sheffield.
Oh. One of them was from... I swear, one of the people in, like, this group or whatever was from Wales.
I'll check.
I could have sworn. Anyway, doesn't matter. He wasn't here, is what I'm saying. Chase U was down the main member of their backup. And thus, we got a straightforward tag team match here. What's it say?
He's from Yorkshire, so... it's not
Okay,
even
never
from
mind. I'm
Sheffield.
just wrong.
You are.
I love this match.
Mason Ryan was Welsh. Carry on.
This match was bloody brilliant.
It was.
This match carried all the same feeling of one of those old NXT TakeOver tags with the Undisputed Era or Alpha Academy or the Revival or DIY or any such combination of lads. Because this was a white hot crowd that wanted to see a title change, ultimately didn't get one, but this was big moves and kickouts and really high intensity, quick wrestling and tags. And I was like, God damn, this was the NXT I loved. This to me was the best match of the whole weekend.
I agree. I was gonna say.
And I went into this just being like, Chase U in the tag title match.
Yeah.
I know they'd had the belts and everything, but I was like, I'm sure it'll be good. Big fan of these, Nathan Frazer and Axiom fellas. I'm sure they'll have a good match. And boy, did they. They did some, like, fun, call it goofy, but, like, Chase U wrestling stuff where Duke Hudson is doing the punches and then doing this and they go, ooh, and then the other one would cut him off and he'd do it again and build it up, ooh, and then finally he'd hit the U and he'd clothesline both of them. Standard kind of goofy house show type stuff. But that was mostly at the beginning. You get to a bit more of the middle, and Andre Chase does the give me a C, give me an H thing all the way around the ring. Chase U. And eventually they just kind of stopped doing that and broke out into, like, the best tag team match I've seen on WWE programming in a while. And granted, I haven't seen SmackDown from last week, and I have heard that the DIY A-Town Down Under tag match was also very good. So I will not compare the two for the moment, but this to me was absolutely everything I wanted it to be. I could go through, like, every single deal here, but my God, what a match.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of Duke Hudson anyway, because I think he's, again, another one of those people where I'm like, your style in ring and also your look are really tasty. And there's a little part of me that looks at Chase U and feels like, are we not at the end of this yet? And yet on the virtue of this, they're so over. Or rather they work together well enough as a unit that actually it's well worth keeping this going. And there were moments in the match where I thought, we're on the way here. Nathan Frazer and Axiom have had their kind of like issues on NXT TV.
There was a miscommunication spot in this match.
Well, they've kind of been like Axiom has almost felt like Nathan Frazier's going into business for himself. Like he's in the battle royal for the title. He's like, you're not focused on us, kind of thing. So there's been that miscommunication thing, and I thought during the match we were gonna see an implosion, or we were gonna see it come good, and that's how they win the title. So I'm curious as to how that's going to play going forward, whether or not it will be. Because I think if Axiom just takes that super kick to the head, which happened a couple of times in this match or whatever, he's going to look a bit of a pushover. Whereas he needs to... I would be interested to see them use that and move forward. What I'm saying is it doesn't feel like it was in the match just for a spot. Yeah. It feels like a continuation of that story, which I really appreciate. This match featured a moment where you can tell it's good right?
Mhm.
Because for the first time in 3 years, I popped out of my seat for a Canadian destroyer.
Or a Canadian driver, as Vic Joseph
He
called
did
it.
indeed call it that. I don't like that move anymore because it's so overdone. But on this occasion, I think I just didn't even slightly see it coming, and it was so what had happened was I believe it was Nathan Frazer had a pin on Duke Hudson. Either way, Andre Chase steps over, breaks up the pin, and on the way uses that as a springboard to hit the Canadian destroyer, which again, it's the momentum of it. It just felt so natural, such a flow. I didn't see it coming. It came out of nowhere. It had an impact because it kept your other man down. And I just was like, goodness gracious, I'm already excited. I'm already on the edge of my seat. And then they hit that out of nowhere. And justifiably, it's one of those like, you sneaky boy kind of moments. Yeah, really, really, really dug it. Really dug it. I love a little tag team wrestling. I think you're right to... It's not necessarily in the pantheon of like all-time great NXT tag team matches. I think that might be hyperbole.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like another example of how you've got a tag title match on a takeover, you're going to have a good time.
Exactly. And for a long time, like the tag title match on the takeover was like... It was the main event before the main event.
Yeah.
Where the main event will probably have the really intense emotional payoff of whatever Gargano and Ciampa are doing or what have you. But you know before that you're going to see the best tag team match of the month.
Yeah.
No,
and it felt
gives me that same
at a
feeling.
time when tag team wrestling wasn't really a thing. Like it just
no AEW yet to
to
bring it back to the spotlight like
and,
that.
You know, we've got American Alpha and we've got DIY, we've got the Revival, like all of that. Even Enzo and Cass, like tag team wrestling in NXT is kind of like a time-honored tradition kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's nice that this was that as well. I played into that too.
Absolutely. So I'll go through like some of the notes of the match as well, because my God, there were a lot of things here. Duke Hudson is doing the like Uranage out of the corner that Samoa Joe does, and I think it works for him. He's a large man against these quick little boys. Little boys, that doesn't sound right. These quick lads. But it was indeed a like Hurricane Rana. Axiom hits a frog splash. Frazer hits a 450 splash. Hudson hit a mule kick, and there's just like one thing after another, and it's so exciting, all of it. Ultimately, then, we had just another combination of things, because we'd already had Frazer hitting the Phoenix Splash, which was the setup for Chase hitting Axiom with the Canadian Destroyer. There's another tag in there, and that's where we got the Chase U bit, to get the people really hyped up and into it. Chase hit a really nice flying crossbody, and that was only a 2. This is where Chase dumps Frazer out of the ring. Chase goes for the Tiger Driver, but in the time that it takes to do that, Frazer gets it back up on the apron. Axiom does a quick tag with him. Chase hits Axiom with a back elbow, but Chase then... There's more tags. There's a lot of tags. It's good, quick tag team wrestling and such. But Frazer hit a superplex and then a super kick, brainbuster combination. Frazer hit a somersault plancha, and Axiom hit the golden ratio, and that was the pin. And the people still popped, even though they didn't get the tag title change that they wanted. Thought this was a phenomenal tag match.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, because I would like for this to mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got the announcement that the Great American Bash will return on the August 6th episode of NXT. And then we got Roxanne Perez versus Lola Vice for the NXT Women's Championship. You talked about it before, but the video package for this, they were cutting around a lot because the segment didn't give them a ton of stellar material to work with. But as far as the match goes, I really liked how it came together. In particular, I liked the finish, because this was, very emotional deal for Lola Vice. She said in the video package that she's going to win this title, become the first Cuban American to win the NXT Women's title. She's going to call her mom, and she's going to be in tears and all these sort of things. But Roxanne Perez is very much like business as usual. Not going to let this phase me. Goes into it. And that plays into the finish a little bit, because As soon as Roxanne Perez hits the Pop Rocks and it doesn't get the pin, then she gets a little bit rattled. She's like, okay, maybe not business as usual. Maybe I need to put a little bit more into this. But thankfully, for her sake and her title reign's sake, she did indeed, because the finish was just hitting the Pop Rocks over and over and over and over and over again, which I didn't know that you could do so quick. I didn't know you could do Code Red, Sunset Flip Power Bombs one after another like this. A very good finish, a very solid little match, I thought. Lola Vice I thought she did very well for herself on the last show. As much as I am not a fan of the NXT Underground MMA stuff, I thought she came out of it looking very much like a star and went into this match carrying a lot of that momentum and like came out of it looking as big a star as she was going in, or perhaps more.
Yeah. I've liked Lola Vice over the past few months. I think the stuff with Natalia, the stuff with Shayna has really almost like shown a different side to her. I think she's got a weird sort of character where when she won the breakout tournament and she kind of did that self-insert moment in the women's title match to turn it into a triple threat, I didn't think she was ready at that point. And I think there was something about it which felt like the character was just, here I am doing this little move and whatever. And it didn't feel like anything in particular. And then over the run of these past few months with the underground stuff, I've really started to feel like I get it. I've really started to feel like I can see what she's bringing to the table. I can see why they'd want to get behind her. I loved the business with Shayna basically being like, stop dancing. You're supposed to beat people up. Yeah. And then it's actually, you can be both of those things. And she sort of uses the dancing to sort of show off that she's going to, here is a hip, and now I'm going to bash you with it, which I quite like. The lead up to this match, I think she's earned herself a world title shot at this show, I think is what I'm trying to say there. The lead up to this match was not good. It was not, especially the segment in ring. There is an overacting element, and I think what immediately followed this match between this and the main event was Wes Lee giving a little speech.
I believe so.
And there was, for all of the praise that I will bend over backwards to give Wes Lee in his in-ring performance, he delivers a promo like he's in year one of acting school, where it's like he's going for 100% earnest, and I'm going to deliver my lines, and then I'm going to be sad, but I'm going to do this, and I'm like, this is a wrestling promo. You're supposed to have caught up with you backstage, and I feel like you're delivering Shakespeare kind of thing. Meanwhile, Lola Vice is in the ring delivering a promo like, and it's almost like you want that level of emotion, you want that level of grit, but I also want to believe that these words are coming out of you in the moment, even though I know they're written. There's something like that where it's a little bit tricky. And they haven't perfected that. I think the performance center, that's one of its big failure areas for me. So going into the match, I was like kind of a little bit trepidatious, and I was quite pleased to see that the Lola Vice that I have come to appreciate over the past couple of months was present here, going for the elbow really quick. And I think it showcased as well how valuable Roxanne is. Like, she's been ready for a call up for about 15 years now, but like, and she's only 20. But she's sort of, as a face and as a heel, the perfect foil for someone to get this kind of rep in. She's the perfect person to have as a champion at the moment. This character that she's got, this kind of vicious side, complemented in an irritating way by Booker T on commentary.
Oh my God.
There's something, I wish he was just the manager at this point, because I really think him as the advocate for Roxanne Perez is good. Like, I love that it makes me hate Roxanne Perez because I'm like, yeah, she's great, but shut up about it, kind of thing. So, but it is funny listening to it on commentary, whereas she then backs it up over and over again in the ring, and that finishing sequence where it's like the viciousness of her going after the hand, I've hit you with a pop rocks and you've kicked out. I wasn't expecting that, but actually you're quite a badass, so you're established badass. So like, okay, fine, I'm going to go and put this I'm gonna do this submission on you on this injured hand, and it's not gonna be enough, so I'm gonna hit you with this again. You've kicked out. Damn it. Okay, I'm gonna break the table. You've kicked out of that one as well. And again, this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier on with Wes, where he's kicking out because this matters so much to him. Because we've established how much this means to Lola Vice, it's justifiable that she would kick out of that second Pop Rocks on the table, because it's like, this is I desperately need this. This is my opportunity to make my family proud. To that level of emotion was a bit much, but was also an explanation for why she's able to kick out here. Is that digging down deep. So even when Roxanne is there was a little botch there in one of the code reds, she pulled it back by just dragging her over and going, and it was almost like the adrenaline and the fury were all part of it, and that's why she didn't land the move as well. So she did one more anyway. Yeah, gets the cover and looks like, when it basically looked like she threw a tantrum and won the match. Yeah. And I really appreciated it. I thought it was great stuff from Roxanne, great stuff from Lola as well. Really tasty. Big fan.
Yeah. And I mean, you already touched on it, but we heard from Wes Lee backstage, who is sad. He's really so sad that he lost.
Look, and the thing about that as well is it's good acting. Like it's not great acting, but it would be good in a soap opera. Yeah. And wrestling is a soap opera, but it also isn't. It also is. It's the format. The I've caught up with you backstage, and here is what I feel like is a really well rehearsed audition piece. Yeah. Rather than your off the cuff in the moment feelings, and that's something that Wes Lee, I think, he needs to get better at. Yeah. And that takes us back around to our main event. So that is going to bring our review of NXT Heatwave to a close. A very good show. Yeah, I thought it was good. This was just kind of the show that I needed at the end of this weekend, because I won't get into my extended thoughts about Money in the Bank or whatever, but fine. Yeah, it was fine. My extended thoughts are available in yesterday's podcast. Yeah. But yeah, fine is a fair assessment. It's fine. They made a lot of decisions that I think are questionable to all hell, and it's too goddamn long. It's so funny because there's the same amount of matches on this show. Yes. But it's an hour shorter. And also, it felt like the matches were longer. Yeah. I haven't actually done the maths on that, but... Yeah. Yeah. It's mad because, I keep saying there's a happy medium between what WWE's been doing and what AEW's been doing. And I'm gonna be fascinated to see how this goes when we go over to Netflix, because there'll probably still be an ad. There were ads in this one, there were segments in this one where I'm skipping through it quite happily, but it didn't feel as bloated in the same way as Money in the Bank did. And that's it. It's wild. There's a happy medium that they could be doing. Both of the companies need to sort out their pacing of their pay-per-views, tremendously so. And I say that at the same time that they put together this really concise 5-match show that was an hour shorter than their pay-per-view. Yeah. So big thumbs up for NXT Heatwave. The only chat that we have gotten in thus far is from Power Packers 90, who's been a member for 34 months in a row, who says, had a stressful week at work, but happily I can relax listening to my favorite masked Canadian and deepest V dresser talking wrestling. Jam that jam, guys. I thank you very much. Thank you. This has been a very nice little way to start the week. The show made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And thus, that'll bring our review to a close. I want to find out what we've got on Raw tomorrow. Because I was off last week. You get to see the awesome Truth and somebody else against Judgment Day. Can't wait. Yeah, it was such a highlight. Anyway, that being said, you will be able to see the Raw review tomorrow with Luke Owen and this man right here, Dan the Truth Layton. So make sure that you keep locked right here on WrestleTalk Podcast channel, and make sure that you are subscribed to stay notified as to when we go live. Any luck? Happy birthday, Ludwig Kaiser. Happy birthday, Ludwig Kaiser. A lot of post-NXT stuff. Nothing as yet tweeted about Raw. Never mind. Yeah, enough of that. But make sure that you enjoy your Monday as much as you can. Watch Raw, and then come back here and watch us as well. We will see you then. I've been Tempest, that's been Dan, and that was NXT.